Hello, how you doing? I'm Craig Parkinson. You are listening to the Two Shot Podcast. Sit yourself down, pop the kettle on. We're going to have a nice old chat. Who's it with this week? I'm going to tell you right now. How the devil are you this week? It's episode 28 of the Two Shot Podcast. Thank you so much for downloading. I need to apologise if I sound slightly croaky. I've been doing quite a lot of talking this week. We've been doing bits and bobs of press and people being really nice about the Two Shot Podcast, and I'm thrilled. It's really incredible, if a slightly overwhelming feeling. It's episode 28. We have Dave Scott, better known as Argh Kid, this week. He's a poet, spoken word artist. We're very lucky to have him on. We met him in the Great Zifferblatt in Edge Street. They were very kind to us, gave us a lovely room at the back. And we get to have a brilliant chat with Dave. And he very, very kindly performed 2 poems. So we're bookending the episode with some work by Argh Kid. A great poem at the beginning, a little chat, great poem at the end. I think you're going to like this. It's a bit of a break from the norm, but it is quite a perfect episode. I hope you enjoy it. Oh, I've got to tell you, we're all sorted. 8th of February, we are at the Baltic Social. That's 27 Parliament Street in Liverpool for the first Two Shot Podcast live. You could be there, sat down, having a guest. Well, we have got what? Well, here's the thing. We've got 2 guests, okay? I've got somebody who's basically opening for us. I'm not going to tell you who it is, but it's very exciting. And our guest, which is going to be recorded as an episode if you can't make it down to Liverpool, or up to Liverpool, or across to Liverpool, wherever you live, it will be recorded and be played out as a normal episode at some point. But it's with the fabulous Ingrid Oliver. We managed to make dates work, and she's getting on the train from London. So thrilled. Big shout out to Ingrid for coming up for our first ever Two Shot Podcast live. Details are on the Facebook and Twitter page. So, yeah, get yourself along. It starts at about 7. I'd get there for about 6:30. Get yourself a pot of tea or a chosen beverage of your choice, and we'll have a good night, shall we? So, this is episode 28 with Dave Scott, better known as Argh Kid. Enjoy, and I'll see you at the end. Welcome to this week's episode. Now, normally, you know what it's like, we just start the nattering, but because we've got a different guest this week, I thought I'd do a little different introduction. I'm now going to hand you over to a poet known locally in Manchester as Argh Kid.
This one's called Not So Northern Quarter. The Northern Quarter, it ain't what it ought to be. £6 a pint, and half that for water. See, the Northern Quarter was always bricks and mortar, the type of place you'd never bring your daughter. Streets frequented by hookers and curb crawlers. It's the place you go for your mucky mag shops and your magic mushrooms, where backy fags got dropped under magic bus fumes. It was a kaleidoscope of fantastic loons. But then the normal quarter got a bit weird and people stopped wearing socks and they started growing beards and tattoos weren't taboo, they were a badge worn with honour. And chip butties are through. I'll have 5 falafels and a doner. These streets that were painted by L.S. Lowry have been diluted by the Castor Tower, and now it's top knots and tight tops and flip-flops. It's all got a little bit on top. The Northern Quarter, as seedy as it had seemed, it was always northern, and that was a quarter of what it had been. Thank you.
There we go. What a way to start this episode. Dave, thanks so much for that. Can I call you Dave?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Please do.
Let me introduce him properly. This is Dave Scott, a local poet, I would say, known very well in Manchester as Argh Kid. How are you?
Yeah, good. Yeah. Thanks a lot for having me on. I've been looking forward to getting involved in this.
No, it's brilliant because, you know, this year what we're doing,
we're carrying on talking to actors and stuff, but I just wanted to open it out there for more creative people, for you to come on and other people to come on to go, hopefully inspire other people to get off their arses.
Took me long enough, to be honest.
Tell me about that. So whereabouts did you grow up?
Grew up in South Manchester, so Longsight originally, and then an area called Levenshulme.
I drove through Longsight last night. The
Fast.
traffic was terrible. It was actually slow, but it was peak time.
Yeah, it's a working class area, so I grew up in like a Irish community and stuff, so a lot of storytellers and stuff, but I was more of a piss artist than a poet. So it took me like 32 years to try. I've been writing poetry for ages, and then trying to get the confidence, and then through my love of alcohol led to my love of poetry, and I got dared to go on an open mic night, and then from there it's just sort of snowballed.
Well, let's go back on that. What did your parents do for a living?
They're still working now. So my mum works for the NHS. She's like an office manager. And my dad's a transport director.
So she's got a tough job at the moment, then,
yeah. Well, the place she works at got privatised about 2 years ago. So
right.
Who she gets paid by, it's a bit confusing. But so her job's been under... what's the word I'm looking for?
Pressure.
Under pressure. Pressure. But she's been threatened with redundancy for the last 2-3 years. So it's been a bit shit time.
And yourself at home with your mum and dad, brothers and sisters?
Yeah, I've got one younger brother who's 25. My younger sister is 35 as well. So there's a 10-year gap.
But a close family?
Yeah, very close. Christmas Day was amazing. We all get together in Mum's house. It's quite small, but she's like an open door. And 4:30 in the morning, I think the last person left after raving on the Christmas dinner table, having sambuca and tequila. So I was written off till New Year's Day.
And growing up, what was school like for you? Were you academic or...?
No, nobody was academic in my school.
What school did you go to?
It was called Spurlier. It's closed now.
Was it alongside?
It's in Gorton. So
right.
Alongside Levenshulme, Gorton are quite close areas. But the year I finished Spurlier, we finished second in the league tables of people who didn't get any GCSEs. So we were second top worst school in the country when we graduated. But we had the most teen pregnancies, so we won on some.
And did you get on at school? Was it more a social thing for you than anything else?
Yeah, it was like a youth club more than it was a school. Aside from the English teacher, and I suppose that's where I got my sort of love for writing.
So that started when you were young?
Yeah, definitely. Like I always say, I'm not a poet, I'm just a musician who can't sing or play guitar. So I've always been writing lyrics, but it started from when I was about 12 years old. There was a teacher called Miss Evans, and she just gave a shit, do you know what I mean? It makes such a difference when you've got a teacher. The rest of them would seem to be there just for a paycheck, and it was more like wardens just keeping us off the streets for 6 hours a day.
Yeah, it makes a massive difference when somebody says, you know what, you've got a bit of a talent there. We should nurture this together, and let's try and work it through, instead of slapping the authority on the kids, and then that just beats them down. Doesn't really do anything for them, does it?
No, not at all. And I'm really lucky that I sort of found that in a teacher, because I've got so many mates that went through the similar school system, and they've gone like prison, life of crime, or just to dead end jobs and stuff. But it's good that she sort of latched onto my talent.
Were you worried at all that was going to be a path you were going to go down at all?
It was. There's been a couple of close calls, if I'm brutally honest with you. There've been times where I've found myself in back of police vans or whatever. And to be honest, not through no fault of my own, but just because of the circle you sort of run with.
Yeah.
And people were doing certain things, and it arrested a lot of people altogether. So it got to the point where I was sat in the back of a police van, and I just said, I can't be doing this shit anymore, and I just had to sort of break ties with a lot of people, because they had made their mind up that they want their life to live a certain way. I took a step back and then just went travelling. So I went around India and around the world.
What age were you when you did this?
First started DJing in Greece, so I was like 20, 21, went on lads' holiday, and I just said I can't be arsed going back. And then just from there went DJ. I've never DJed in my life, but you don't know until you try, do you?
That's it, innit? Well, that's actually a sensible phrase, isn't it? You don't know till you try, so you don't know anything. And like you say, you were messing about with lyrics at school, but did you ever read those lyrics to anybody, or?
God, no. I've actually found them in the loft, because I moved house recently, and I've got boxes of books.
Oh, and you kept them?
I've kept them, yes. They will never see the light of day unless I get an archive or something. And I've long been dead, but there's some girls who don't come off very well in the poetry. When I was definitely a virgin, let's put it that way.
Well, look, you have to have a vessel to vent, don't you? And that was your way. So, when you were travelling around, what were you trying to achieve? You just wanted to be a bit freer from the area, or try and find yourself, work out who you are? I
don't want to say find myself, because it sounds quite very hippie-ish, and I met a lot of people on the similar sort of backpacker route that were doing the sort of whole finding themselves. And you talk about the experiences, and a lot of them are middle-class kids who were just trying to get away from mummy and daddy, and I wasn't one of them. But it was more... I tried it on several occasions, but you're escaping yourself, I found, and I wasn't really comfortable in my own sort of skin in what I was doing in life, and that's what, every time I go away, I come back and I'd still feel the same. So it wasn't what I was searching for. I was never in any foreign country as such, but I come back and it's because I wasn't doing anything that... it was the writing side of it, to be honest, and that's...
You felt like, obviously, maybe you didn't know at the time, but you weren't achieving your full potential, really.
Yeah, but I don't want that to sound arrogant. Do you know what I mean?
Look, I don't think it does sound arrogant, because I was talking to somebody the other day, and it was an actor, and we're talking about drama school and what age is right. What age is right for you to go there, to get all this, to be open to all this knowledge, and I was saying to her, well, in a way, I went when I was 18. Not that I regret it, but I think I probably was too young, because I didn't know who I was as a person. Sure. I don't want that to sound wanky, but you don't know who you are, because you're forever, especially when kids come into your life, you go, oh God, all right, okay, well, this is who I am now. And so no, I don't think it does come across as arrogant at all. I totally went off road, and I don't know where we were. Where were we? You are... How long were you travelling for then?
2 years. We're travelling, and then my missus...
From what age?
Mother got ill, so I was on my own for about 6-7 months, then I came back to England, and then met my wife, and then she got laid off, and then we decided to just, let's go back out, so I went to India and Indonesia, so between the ages of 22 to 24, I think.
Right, okay. And you said your mum got ill?
Not my mum, my wife's mum at the time, and then she unfortunately passed away. But so I don't know where, if that had not happened, we had visas to go and live in New Zealand and Australia and stuff. So I don't know where life would have sort of taken us if that had not happened.
So you come back, and what? Because you're obviously not working at the moment. You didn't have a job at that time, did you?
No,
because you were travelling. So what were you thinking of doing when you come back?
I don't know. I've always been really good in job interviews.
Tell me about some of your job interviews. Or tell me about some of your jobs.
I'm hoping never to go into actually full-time career anymore, so this might be open a few eyes to people who've hired me in the past. But my CV would be fucking huge. It's just I've been a butcher, a baker, not a candlestick maker, but I've worked at call centres, advertising agencies, sports shops, sort of saying to Griff off air. What else? I've worked, been a chef. Bartender, DJ, dancer.
A dancer?
A poet, yeah, really, really fucking bad dancer.
What, like in a nightclub dancer?
Yeah. that was very short-lived. They weren't hiring people with 2 left feet.
Look, bills have to be paid, Dave.
Yeah. But it wasn't so much that I had bills to be paid. I get bored really easy. And I was listening to the podcast the other day that you did of the lad out of This Is England.
What would that be, Tomo?
It wasn't Tomo, it was
Joe.
Joe about his ADHD. And I've never been diagnosed or anything like that, but it wouldn't be too surprising if that was the case, because I could never stay still in a job because it was just boring. And me and my dad are like chalk and cheese, whereas he's quite, you need a job and you're very lucky to have a job, like proper old school mentality. And I'm like, well, fuck that. You only have one life to live. I don't really want to spend it being told by certain people that you should live and you should act in a certain way. And for me, it just seemed to be completely against my nature.
Or to do a job that was unfulfilling for you.
Yeah.
So did you have any path? Were you still knocking about with lyrics and messing about at this point?
Yeah, lyrics have always been since about the age of 10, I can remember 10, 12, I can remember just been writing poems or songs. I was really big into, when I first started going to school, you had like the likes of Snoop Doggy Dogg and Dr. Dre first like broke through, so hip-hop was like its golden moment, I suppose.
Was it a big influence for you?
Oh yeah, ridiculously so. And not because I was living any life that's similar to West Coast America, but there were sort of similarities in terms of gang culture, especially in South Manchester. You had the Moss Side stuff that was going on, and I knew a few people who got caught up and killed through the gang stuff. So you could see similarities in lifestyles, and it's the storytelling that I always find fascinating. I was having a conversation with a few poets of the week, and they were saying that poetry is like a shot glass, whereas novels are like pints of lager that you can mull over. Now I sort of try and straddle between the two, because I love that I love telling stories and creating an image rather than just doing sort of haikus just for the sake of being artsy and fartsy, and that's why I don't really get on well with many poets, to be honest.
Obviously you meet a lot.
I don't, to be honest, I don't really get welcomed into the circle, because the way I've sort of come into it, it hasn't been through the usual way, I guess.
Well, let's talk about that. Do you know who was the first person that you mustered up the courage to let them read your lyrics, or you perform a poet to?
My lyrics, it used to be, so we'd go out on a night out with all the lads with the intent of trying to find a lady by the end of the night. I'd say a lady, I've loosed the term. But they'd all be on the dance floor busting some moves, and then I'd be in the corner with my mobile phone and just be writing lyrics, and I'd make my way to the middle of the dance floor and show my mates, and they'd be like, just piss off, Dave, with your lyrics and stuff like that. And a lot of them were shy, but it was just, I have a certain circle of friends now that I'll always sort of just throw one lines here or there, and the way I write it's not, I don't have any sort of set goal. I just write lines or a couplet here and there, and then they sort of form in my mind, and then I sort of sit down and they put them together like a jigsaw. That's the way I sort of write. But probably my wife now is probably the one when she's not looking after the kids. Is
she a harsh critic?
No, she's, well, usually on what I'm wearing and how my hair looks rather than anything, and how I pronounce my words. She goes, you really sound dead common. I said, well, I am really common. So, I had a conversation with, because I've been doing the work with the FA Cup for the trailers, and they said, don't pronounce your T's. I said, really? I said, my wife always says that I should pronounce t. And then they said, no, you don't sound right at all. So I went back and said, right, well, last time I asked you for advice.
And so what was the job that you were doing when you went, right, I've had enough of this, I've got to try and make a crack of being a poet full time?
I was working in radio advertising, and funnily enough, there's a story that links to you, because we were trying to get you, I think you were doing Indian Summers at the time, and
right.
Me and my wife were massive fans of that show, and I gutted that it got cancelled, didn't it?
It did, after 2 series.
Yeah, I was absolutely devastated, I mean, imagine it was a huge budget to...
I think it was. I don't really get involved in that. I'm just mouth for hire.
You're very good in it, by the way.
Bless you
very
much.
But so we were huge fans of that. So we were looking for someone to do a northern accent. I can't remember the name of the client or anything. And we were looking for you to do the voiceover for it.
Yeah.
And I think we tried to get in touch with your agent, and for one reason or another, it didn't come off. But yeah, so I was doing like radio advertising, and it just became a bit too cringe. And then I said to Mo, we're expecting our second daughter. I have 3 of them now. Hairline's slowly going...
Busy worker, Dave.
Yeah. And I said to my wife, I'm doing something with these lyrics now, because if I don't, I'm going to have 2 kids in and I'm going to be stuck. And I can't... Because you get to that stage where you've got so many people depending on you bringing in the money, you didn't have the luxury to sort of be able to jump between jobs. And I suppose that's what my dad said because he had me when my mum had me when I was quite young. He didn't have the luxury to be able to jump around for jobs. But it's like I said, when you have kids, you understand more about who you are in that sense. So I said to my wife, right, I'm going to book a fringe gig. I'm going to stand up in front of people and read my poems. First time I've ever done it.
So where were you going to book?
I booked Joshua Brooks at Manchester Fringe Festival, having never done anything like that before. So then I thought, right, well, how can I really challenge myself? And at this point, not many people knew that I was a poet as such, or that I wrote these lyrics. So I said, right, I'm going to invite every person that I know from South Manchester. I'm going to fill that room, because they'll all, if I'm shit, they'll tell me I'm shit, and then I can lay it to rest.
Yeah.
And the weeks leading up to the gig, the abuse I was getting off my friends were like, I hope you fall on your ass. I'm going to take the piss out of you. Really did. I'm going to royally ruin you for the rest of your life. Yeah. But that's how it is up here. That's support.
Yeah, I know.
But most of them were like, we didn't know you did any of this. And I said, well, let's see how the gig goes. So we went, Did the gig.
Did you fill it? Did you fill
Yeah,
the room?
yeah, it was sold out.
So how many people were
there?
there?
120 people.
Oh my
And I think there was
God.
4 of them that I didn't know.
So what were you feeling like just the moment just before you went on stage for the first time? Your heart must have been pumping 10 to the
Yeah,
dozen.
no, I get nervous now thinking about it. It was shitting it, absolutely, yeah. Terrified, because Joshua Brooks is quite an intimate venue and they don't have a green room as such, so I was stood at the back and I just kept seeing these faces and I was like, I didn't know I invited them, oh no. And a lot of my poetry is quite biographical, autobiographical, or if not, stories about people that I know, so there was content in the poems.
And certainly the areas around
Yeah,
it.
yeah, exactly, so there was things that people could attach to, so I was talking about people in the audience in the poems that I was like, oh, and then I killed it. It went like amazing. Not to blow my own trumpet, but yeah. So I came out and
Were you just buzzing at the end?
I was relieved because not one of them could take the piss out of me, and they were all gutted. Not one of them bought me a pint afterwards. They were all because they were that upset that they couldn't wind me up. But they were saying, well, why have you waited so long to come out and do this? And it was very much like not like a sexuality coming out. Do you know what I mean? Like, well, this is because when you're, I don't know your background, but when you're doing sort of arty stuff in a working class area, it's very.
Well, you just.
It's not the done thing.
Well, no, because you just get the piss taken out.
Yeah.
You know, when I wanted to be an actor when I was at school, I think I was one of the only lads that kind of took it seriously. And
Yeah.
You get called all sorts, but you just have to brush it off. And it's very hard at that age when you're younger, but I suppose when you're older and you know who you are, and you have got a solid group of friends around you, even though they are northerners and they're going to take the piss.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, they do support you. So what was the next step?
So from there, National Poetry Day came up, and then I did a poem called Nana Calls Me Cock, which sort of broke down Mancunian colloquialisms and dialects and stuff. Manchester Evening News got hold of it, and then it did like 300,000 views in a week, and I was like, oh, and I was getting recognised in places, and it was really random. So I turned around to my wife and I said, I'm going to quit. She goes, what are you going to do? I said, I'm going to be a poet. And all my mates again said, what are you doing? I said, well, if I don't go for it, she goes, but you can't just be a poet, how are you going to bring money in? I said, I don't know. I said, we'll work that out. So it was just a complete leap of faith. I had a bit of savings, not enough in hindsight, because it was. I left my job in November, and I'm pretty sure the acting world similar. It's quiet months, aren't they? November, December, January.
Things shut down, and then things take time to reopen, and people need to get their head together.
Yeah, so it got to December, and obviously Christmas came. All my savings went on Christmas presents. It got to January, I was looking for postman jobs because there was no work coming in.
Really?
So yeah, so I was thinking, what have I done? What sort of mistake have I made here? And then it just someone got in touch and said, we'd like to commission you to do a poem. And then from there, they said, Christopher Eccleston's interested in reading the poem. So I was like, what now? Do you know? It's just random. So okay, yeah. And then from there, it just snowballed and doors sort of opened.
And did you go on stage when you first went on stage that time? Were you just Dave Scott, or how did the Argh Kid come about?
The Argh Kid came about. It was my Twitter handle, but a lot of people put it down to it's lazy journalism when they do it, because Argh Kid is actually an Irish phrase. It's not actually a Mancunian phrase because of the Oasis connotations with it. They think it's due to that, but it's not at all. And because I'm a huge hip hop fan, there was a hip hop group called Little Brother. Now, they called themselves Little Brother to give a nod to the forefathers of hip hop. So they were part of the lineage for like Rakim and all them sort of artists. Now mine was a similar sort of thing. I'm like a wordsmith in a city that's full of wordsmiths. So I was like the younger brother, because the likes of Morrissey, Guy Garvey, and so on and so forth, for me were always people I looked up to in terms of lyrics. So Argh Kid was always a younger one, and that's where the sort of the name came from. But the stage persona, it's only when I don't know about yourself, but I get fucking really nervous before I go on stage. Like
terrifying.
I walk around like a boxer, and that's what I treat performances like. It's like I would build myself up, so it's like a bit like a fight. And then people said, "Oh, you're really confident on stage." I said, "But you don't know inside." it's like the back of my mind, I can hear the conversations going on between the back of my mind. I'm like, shut up. Do you know? And all the while you're trying to keep this space. And I don't read any of my work out. It's all like memorized, so I don't read poets.
All of it's memorized.
All of it. So you're talking 15 poems, 15, 20 poems.
Wow.
Yeah, so for 30, 40 minutes you're having that conversation in your mind.
And when you're writing them down, because obviously you write them down at first, do you...
Well, I don't. So...
what's the process then?
So the process is I'll either get an idea from watching a film or a song lyric, and then I'll twist that, and then I'll start writing that in my mind, and then there'll be something else. So I tend to write a lot in my mind and then put it all together. And then this is because if I started by writing them down, then I don't think I'd remember them. So what I do now is I write them all in my head to start with, and a lot of my work's quite lyrical. So I imagine a sort of beat in my mind, and that's a sort of, and then I hook onto it. It sounds quite, I don't know what a mental health expert.
No. I think this is really, really interesting because I was going back to when you were writing it down at school. Then I was thinking, if he writes them down, does he sit and memorise them and then sort of lock them away in the back of his mind? But you do it all and you edit and do it all in your own
do it
head.
all in my mind, and then once I've got the chunk of it, then I'll sit down. The actual writing process is like, so the one Nana Calls Me Cock, I wrote in about 15 minutes. I'll tweak it here and there, but the bulk of it will all like be in my mind because I'll have that sort of beat, and that's what I hook onto. And my dad always takes a piss because he says, "Why do you like?" Because I don't rock, but you know,
it's a bit like when a musician's writing or musicians singing and they're tapping their feet. I suppose you've got that constant beat.
Yeah, so yeah. I can hear the beat, but nobody else can hear the beat, but they can hear the beat in the words. It's that because a lot of people listen to my stuff, see it's quite sort of lyrical. So that's how I tend to write.
And how old are your kids?
5. Romy's 2 in 2 weeks, and youngest is 10 weeks old.
Oh my god!
Yeah, amazing, beautiful children.
And do you perform for your 5-year-old?
Yeah.
Is he aware of what you do?
She's
she?
Yeah, it's for Maya. Yeah. She's she will be an actress. You must know yourself when you've seen people who actually sort of made for.
I've got a 6-year-old. Yeah.
So she's like. There's no airs and graces about her. Like she's really confident and outgoing, and everyone who meets her says that she'll definitely, like, she's made for TV or the stage or whatever. But yeah, so I walk around the house reciting my poetry anyway, and then Maya jumps on and starts doing. I've done like a cover version of. Do you know Bob? Are you a Bob Dylan fan?
Not particularly. No.
Okay, so I've done like a cover version of like a cover version, but a reworking of Bob Dylan's lyrics. And it's like Johnny's in the cellar, bent, wonders where the Stella went, and it's talking about this drug dealer, but this doesn't mention drugs in the piece.
Sure.
And I turn round, and then my daughter's like, "Look out, son! Well, don't matter what you've done." And then she starts, and I'm like, "But she'll tell me when I'm wrong."
She?
Yeah, she'll pull me up on it. She's worse than her mum.
That is brilliant. So she's already started to be creative.
Yeah,
because
definitely.
of you.
Yeah, well, no, I think she's just.
It's just there.
It's just there, and what I want to make sure doesn't happen to her is that. Because I always liken what I went through as I had to have a learning. I had to unlearn to give a fuck about what people thought. Because
in what way?
Because I think throughout time, because like I said, you grow up in a certain area, you build up walls and barriers because you don't want people to know what you do in an artistic point of view. And the more time sort of went on, I moved further and further away from having any confidence. So I had to unlearn to give a toss about what other people thought. Because a lot of it's your own insecurities. It isn't what people think at all. It's what you actually interpret. So I don't want her to grow up and have the any sort of self-doubt. So I want to try and be to her what my English teacher was to me. And I teach a lot now as well. So I'm going to schools.
Oh, well, I was going to talk to you about that because I was going to talk to you about inspiration for children nowadays, you know, because the thing about being a child, and we've spoken about this with other actors, is they're so free. They don't care. they're not scared of, you know, stripping themselves naked and going, this is what I feel, or this is what I've written. Obviously, not literally, physically. What do you do in schools?
So my brief is pretty much so young boys from the age of 10 to from then on lose interest in any sort of creative writing in the working class areas. So I go in and basically try and re-engage them with poetry, but just creative writing as well, because that's radio advertising, but I also write screenplays and stuff like that. So I go in and try and hook them back into, look, just because you've been taught, because I think that we teach English or creative writing in a wrong way in many ways in schools, especially with the curriculum. So I go in and I sort of say, I'm a poet, and you should see their faces straight away. Because I know what I would be like if like, oh, we've got this poet coming in with his gladiola. You expect Morrissey, don't you, in certain ways. And then I go in and I start doing stuff about crime or drugs or bad relationships, and then I liken it to fishing, because you see you literally you see the moment where the light bulb, and they go, that's poetry. And I said, well, what is poetry? Who is it that defines what poetry is? And then they're like, oh, right. So then we break down Stormzy lyrics, Eminem, and then I show relationships between what Shakespeare was talking about to modern day rappers and stuff. And then they're like, oh, right. Because it's seen, it's amazing that it's 2018 and poetry is still seen as as an elitist art form. I mean, even me now, when I do this as a living, I still sort of cringe when someone says you're a poet, because I'm not too sure if it's a deserved title.
What, for yourself?
For myself,
I
yeah.
think it is.
I know.
Personally, I think poetry comes in all different kinds of form. And if you say, as you say, you go into these schools and you say, oh, there's a poet coming in, they've already got an immediate idea of what to expect. And then you rock up and you're talking about the Northern Quarter and top knots. And they're going, yeah, I've been there. I know that person he's talking about. So you're relating it to them. So it comes in all different forms nowadays.
Yeah.
And as you say, you only need to turn on the radio and it's there.
But because of the way the curriculum's based up with the school system, kids don't see that is poetry, so they detach themselves from it, and then that just seems to be more. And then, okay, we can't write poetry, we can't write short stories, we can't paint, and that it's through the whole sort of spectrum of like the creative arts. I was reading an article in the Guardian the other day saying we're failing creativity in schools that aren't of the middle classes, and it's scandalous, really. So, and I'm not like some revolutionary with a mission and stuff, but knowing that I've been through that path myself, and it took me to the age of 30 plus to actually get some balls to do that, I think we're doing a disservice to the kids today by not encouraging them to do that. So that's what I try and do in schools.
And do you think things will change, or obviously things need to change?
They need to. I'd love a coffee, please. Sorry. Add just black. They need to change. They needed to change for a long time, but like I said,
have you spoken to the headmasters and the teachers in the schools when they've asked you in?
I speak to the teachers, and but they always feel that it's not their fault because they're taught that it comes from above them.
Yeah.
Now, unless me or people of my ilk are going to get a dialogue with the people who set the curriculum, which I can never see happening, we've got to try and be
never say never.
Yeah.
Sometimes you need to reach for the top and see
that's a
what
good point.
happens.
Yeah, I'm sort of contradicting myself there. If you don't know, if you don't try, you never know.
Exactly.
Where was I? Yeah, but it needs to be done. We need to encourage, because we are losing a lot of arts, and especially when you look, especially in your world, the actors. There's a lot of things about. And I spoke to Steve Everts, who had the other day about this, and it's the amount of working class actors. And I think Gary Oldman, there was an article with Gary Oldman in the paper.
It was fantastic. I was talking about it the other day.
He was saying about the lack of working class actors, and where are they all now? It's just...
Well, they're all there, but I think sometimes they're being... a brick wall's being put up between them to say, no, you can't do it, or who do you think you are? You can't look at all the upper to middle class actors, that's who's doing it. Well, it isn't, actually. And anybody can do it, because art's everywhere, drama's everywhere. You just need to look around and find it and just do it.
Yeah.
Get together and do it. Going back to your first poem that you read for us just now, I was thinking, because as an actor, a lot of what we do and a lot of how we started was to people watch. And if you're sat outside on a summer's day, especially around here where we are in the Northern Quarter at the moment, there's just a wealth of stories that are going past. You know, there's a couple having an argument there. There's a man just sat by himself. You just people watching. And as an actor, I just start picking up and start thinking about these people's lives. Do you do the same with that? Do you ever sit down and go, right, I'm gonna just watch and see if I can build a story or build a poem? Would that be?
Yeah, definitely, and not with a view to build a poem, but and I don't know if I'm a nosy bastard, but I'm always interested in other people's stories.
Yeah, me
it's
too.
Like I know we had this meeting today, but I was interested to talk more about hearing about what you've been up to around. Do you know?
No, that's the thing. I don't do that on this podcast. So that's what I love about this podcast, because I get to meet people I don't know, and I get to hear. Even if I meet people I do know, I get to hear bits of stories about them that I didn't know.
Yeah,
and it's that thing about sitting down one-on-one with somebody for, half an hour, 45 minutes, an hour. You just don't do it enough, do you?
No, not at all.
And especially make it all about that other person.
Yeah, so I'm always interested to listening to other people's stories and what they've been in, because.
And do you get inspiration from that?
Yeah, definitely, and to the point where sometimes I have to ask, because I made a mistake of mentioning certain things in the poetry in front of my family and stuff, because a lot of it is quite. Sort of raw is a word that's usually mentioned when people describe my work. And I was talking about my mum and dad, because my dad's... I do this poem called Beige Boy. Now, the audience can't see my skin or whatever, but so when I was growing up, I was called Beige Boy because I wasn't black or I wasn't white, and we didn't know where... My dad's sort of more olive skin than I am, but we didn't know where that came from, because his brother and that was white... So my dad, for the best part of his life, didn't realise that his biological father was Italian, but he came out like recently, so about 4 or 5 years ago. But my dad was like, "Well, you can't put that in a poem." I said, "But Dad, it's as much about my life as it is about yours." So I do this line: "The iPhone doesn't fall too far from the iPad. My identity struggles are the same as my dad," because I went through a similar sort of thing, and I was called Beige Boy in school. That was what in primary school there was, like, kids who were black, and then kids who were white, and then Beige Boy, and that used to become my
really.
So there was part of me that was going to use Beige Boy as my.
I was going to say that could have been your poet name.
Yeah. So that was when I was thinking about it, but I don't really, the colour beige doesn't sound very cool, does it? I suppose
that's the worst colour in the world.
It really is. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So nowadays, if I am writing something that's similar to someone's life, and they'll be very aware that it is, then I ask them, would you mind if I use that as a form of inspiration or whatever? But by and large, most of them are like, yeah, please do. Well, I'd love you to.
It would have been funny if you were called Beige Boy, though, because beige is like, it's neither here nor there. It's nothing, is it?
No.
It's yeah. And and your work is kind of anything but. So
yeah, so like a postmodern.
It would have been quite ironic, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Have you ever got into any grief or trouble or upset people with your work? Especially because I know that you lift things that can be quite personal sometimes. Does it ever upset anybody, or do you know what, Dave? I wish you really hadn't have mentioned that or said that. That was kind of personal. Not
really. It's usually the other side of it, because I do a poem called Tearaways, and that's about me and my friends when we were growing up. And like I said before, some of them went off on the wrong side of the tracks, and like I've lost friends to addiction. And then ironically enough, I got a letter from one of the lads who this poem's about, and he's in Strange Ways. I've not seen him for 12 years, and he sent me a letter saying I was in my cell or whatever the other day, and I heard this voice because I'm getting interviewed on Granada tonight, and I looked up, and there you are in this shitty yellow coat, which I think's a very nice yellow coat.
I've seen that coat. It's a very nice coat.
Thank you very much. I do love my jackets. But yeah, so he wrote me a letter and goes, I've started looking at your stuff. I don't know how he can look online in prison and stuff, but yeah, and he was like, it's amazing what you've been writing and stuff. So I think it's nice that someone's telling their story. I think that's it. But when I go back home nowadays to Longsight, everyone thinks because I've been working with United or I'm on telly that I have loads of money, and I haven't. Poetry doesn't pay fantastic, but everyone expects you to buy the round in the bar.
But you're at a stage where you're earning a living.
Yeah. I do about 400 different things. I had a meeting yesterday, and I didn't know poetry could lead down so many angles, like you're saying with this yourself.
Tell me what avenues has it took you down so far?
Okay, so I do the teaching side of it.
And did they approach you about that?
Yeah, it started with a youth centre that approached me, and then I put the review of what they, after a 6-week workshop, what the students had said, and then another school got in touch with me, and then it sort of like snowballed.
It's so important. I think it's so brilliant.
Yeah,
I think you need to travel all around the UK and start doing it, to be honest.
Well, I do. I've been down as far as South Birmingham, and you have to slow down your talk. The Mancunian accent is just... yes, I've been as far south as Birmingham teaching, and it's the same. It's a different city, same story. The kids feeling the same sort of stresses at home, and they don't like poetry or expressing themselves in a sort of artistic way because it's seen as it's a weakness. I think some people see that.
Well, it's like, do you know when sorry to interrupt, do you know when they do, certainly when I was younger, not so much now, when they do drama at school, and even you get the shy, retiring types in the corner, if they do a bit of drama, it brings it out in themselves, and maybe there's something in there that needs to be drawn out. So for you doing that for these kids, there might be that one person, and all of a sudden you light a fire in them, and there they go. You're being a massive inspiration to them, and they need that. I do think kids need that.
Yeah, I mean, I've everything to do. The teaching is easily the highlight of it. And we had an instance. There was a girl who had a teenage. She was a teenage mum, or she was soon to be a teenage mum. And then we went in, taught a bit about poetry. Oh, you should be able to write stuff. And we ran a poetry competition for National Poetry Day. And the work that she delivered, I was nearly in tears now. It's just the trauma she was going through at home for being a teenage mum, and she was with an abusive boyfriend, and it was like, fuck. Do you know what I mean? But
yeah.
But she was. Thanks for showing me how to do. You know. And I remember driving back up the M6, and the traffic was fucking appalling. So I had a lot of time to sort of ponder it, and it was amazing. I don't do it for any other reason than, just to... I love seeing that sort of spark in them, and if it gives them a little bit of freedom away from the shit in their lives, it's...
Imagine if you'd have had that when you were at school, you'd have started earlier.
I always think that, but I don't know who I would have been.
Exactly, yeah.
It's...
Because everything happens in time for a reason, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And, you had to go travelling, you had to do 567,000 different jobs to work out.
But that's what I mean. Now I've got a wealth of material in the back of my mind now for all them stories and people that I've met, like cooking on the River Trent on a canal boat. It's just...
I was going to ask, actually, do you ever get blocks or worry about material? But I thought, you've got a wealth of material all around you all the time. Or do you ever get those blocks?
Not really. I'm probably going to get one now, aren't I?
Shit, what have I said? I'm sorry.
I'm like, damn you. It's choosing what the right one is to write about. I tend to juggle about 400 different ideas in my mind. I've got a gig coming up in 2 weeks, and I've been writing 4 different poems in my mind from... And it's like a filing system in my mind, like, right, we're going to concentrate on this, bring it to the front of the mind. And it's... I've been quite fortunate to answer the question, I suppose, in terms of material.
And could you ever see yourself doing anything else?
Not now. My wife says to me I take too much work on, and I said, well, I never believed... I always had confidence in my ability, but I never believed I'd get the opportunity to do this as a living, to do anything sort of... to make shit for your... do you know what I mean? That's the dream, isn't it? Or to do something you love.
Yeah.
It's like my dad loves driving, and if he's behind the car, he's the worst passenger in the world. But if he's driving,
many dads are.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, he used to be a taxi driver. He knows the best way to... It's changing a little bit round here. But yeah, so to have the job that you love is just... I feel it's really blessed. So,
because then in a way you never really work a day in your life, do you?
No, I know that's the cliche, but it's for a reason.
I kind of think it's true.
Yeah, definitely. So I'm really precious about it, and I put 110% into every single thing that I do. A lot of the time to the detriment where I don't really sleep or stuff because I'm that jumpy. Like this morning, I was doing voiceover work for adverts in Sierra Leone at 6 o'clock this morning, which was random.
Because you write and edit and process all up here, do you ever get to a point where you do have trouble sleeping, where you can't switch your mind off because you're constantly thinking, or you're jumbling? You know, your head's like a bloody tumble dryer, and
Yeah,
you're
definitely.
just full of words.
Definitely, I sleep 4 hours a night, and I mean obviously with the kids as well. It doesn't, and I think the way I write, in my mind is a lot of the time because I don't get the opportunity to sit down in front of. I think I'd probably get writer's block if I allocated time in the day. I'm going to write today between the hours of 4 and 6. I can just imagine me sat there and nothing had come out. But because I'm always on the move and stuff like that, and with the kids and driving as well, it's like if anyone pulls alongside me in the really battered Mazda, they'll see me like I'll be bouncing. There'll be no music, but I start do a lot of writing in the car. Not literal writing.
And how did the football stuff come about? Was that again? Would they approach you?
Yeah, so that came after the Christopher Eccleston. I did that poem called Manchester Brawling.
So what did Christopher Eccleston do for you? Just go back on that.
So there was a poem called Manchester Brawling that I was commissioned to write for a redeveloping in Manchester. And then the agency got in touch and said, right, well, somehow Christopher Eccleston's seen it and we'd like him to read it. I was like, all right, okay, fine, you don't want my voiceover, but you want Christopher Eccleston's. Now there's 2 versions online, and I'm not going to do a disservice to Mr. Eccleston. I wouldn't want to. But yeah, people prefer my version in terms of it being more authentic Mancunian.
Listeners, you can go check out yourselves, be your own judge. We're not here.
But Christopher, he gave me a lot of advice in terms of, because you were 18, did you say, when you first started?
Yeah.
So when you got your first break?
Of when I left, 21.
Right, okay. So, and it feels, it's like a weird world, isn't it? I kept expecting someone to tap me on the shoulder and kick me out of the club. And Chris Eccleston said, well, no, I was like that for 20 years. It's like imposter syndrome, I think a friend of mine referred to it as. Well,
yeah, 100%. That never kind of leaves you.
No.
You do constantly feel like that.
Yeah.
Because it's certainly, you know, from where I am, first day of school all the time for every new job.
Yeah, definitely. So it was sort of reassuring. I was thinking, with such an esteemed actor as him, if he felt that for that long, then it's a natural sort of feeling. And I speak to Steve, and it's exactly the same. And I'm sort of going off on a tangent, but the more people you meet, it's like when I used to see you in Indian Summers. Wow, and I'm not doing you a disservice in person, but do you know what I mean? There's sort of magic, but you sort of when you sort of cross over. Our mutual friend Wendy, we were talking. It's like Hogwarts when you cross over, like the mudbloods and the people who are in the art world and stuff. You feel like you've been accepted into a club, and you see the mechanics about how it works, and everyone is human. But until you actually cross that divide, I don't know if I'm making sense.
No, you are.
So and now it's like, oh right, there's Sean Ryder. Oh, Sean Ryder's is a decent, he's a sound bloke, and that's everybody. But up until you get that opportunity, you sort of feel distant and undeserved.
I suppose because you look up to these people and you put them on a pedestal, and then when you get to meet them or work with them, you go, oh right, well they're just human and they've got insecurities just like me, and it don't matter where they come from. Yeah, that's it. And then so to be working with Man United the first time, to walk around Old Trafford on your own, and it's like, wow. And it's like the Wizard of Oz. So when they realise the Wiz is just all a big con. Yeah.
And that's what it was like, because you sort of go, not that Old Trafford's a con, but you see that it's all right. You
see the mechanics backstage.
You see the mechanics, yeah. And in many ways it sort of took the magic away from match days for me. And I go with my brother because we got season tickets, and he I still love it, but I know how many people mow that lawn on a daily basis because I've been in there, and I know I've been in like the dressing rooms and stuff, and it's a different sort of twist. And a friend of mine always said, don't ever study English literature if you enjoy reading, because what will happen is they'll teach you how people write and the skills. So from then on, you're always looking for the techniques that they're using when they're writing. It sort of it demystifies it. I wonder if that's the same in acting, actually.
It can be a little bit,
do you pick up on certain, they've gone for that way because...
Well, sometimes it's hard to watch a film, especially if you know the area very well, or you know the city, and say you'll have 2 people walking around and they're talking, and then they'll turn a corner and all of a sudden, and it looks seamless on screen, you go, No. Because if they'd have walked left there, they'd have gone to that street. We know that. And things like that kind of annoy you. Because, you know the mechanics of editing and all that. But you have to try and turn your brain off.
Yeah.
This week's episode is sponsored by Zifferblatt. What's Craig, what are you talking about? What is Zifferblatt? I'm going to tell you. You probably haven't heard of it, have you? It's a pay-per-minute sitting room, and you pay 8p per minute, and everything else is free. Trust me. You go in there, you've got tea, coffee, cake, breakfast, brownies, toasties, cookies, Wi-Fi, they've got loads of other snacks. There's couches there, there's board games, and look, what it is, it's an alternative to a co-working space or a cafe. So if you've got meetings, you've got work to do, just go there. And the great thing is they've got a cap. If you're there for 4 hours, you don't pay anything else. You could stay there all day if you want. Trust me, I have done. And also, if you're a student, you get 25% off with your valid student card. Another little tasty treat, if you're a Two Shot Pod listener and you quote Ziffer, Ziffer, Two Shot, and then the numbers 241, that's Ziffer, Two Shot, 241, it's buy one, get one free. You go, bring your mate for free. Try it out today. That discount is valid till the end of March. A huge thank you to Zifferblatt. And if you're in Manchester, Edge Street in the Northern Quarter, pop there. If you're in Media City, it's at the Tomorrow Building, go there. If you're in Liverpool, St Paul's Square, get yourself over. Use Zifferblatt, sponsors of this week's Two Shot Podcast. Cheers, guys.
Do you feel your confidence is getting stronger? And I don't mean in an arrogant way. Do you think you're... Because, as actors, there's a lot of rejection. You have to, as a good mate of mine says, you have to put on your suit of armour because you're going to get a lot of knocks. So you have to build up the confidence, but make sure it doesn't stretch into the arrogance. Do you feel you're getting stronger as an artist?
Definitely. I'm definitely getting thicker skinned. It's been, like I said, it's been a long road to get here now. So I'll always try and stay humble in that I've got the opportunity to do that. But yeah, I don't know if artists generally have a sort of a confidence issue in terms of when you put anything out there. It's like I'm doing stuff to music nowadays that's to be released this year, and I'm nervous as hell about doing that because it might bomb. But then part of me's like, oh well,
But you've got to try. Otherwise you don't know, do you?
No, not at all. And I always written lyrics for my own personal enjoyment, and I like the music that goes. And that's, to this day, I don't do it for any other reason, because if I enjoy it and other people attach onto it, then that's great. But as long as the focal point is that I'm writing for me as an audience, then I can't do any wrong, because I don't have to justify it by anybody else.
Is that what you do? You do write for yourself?
Yeah. It has to make me laugh, or it has to make me sort of ponder on certain things. So I surprise myself sometimes into some of the words I come out with. I'm like, oh right, shit, that's quite profound for you. But yeah, so just write for myself all the time.
And just to sort of end it all, do you, and I've never really done this, but I think it's kind of apt, if there's anybody out there listening who is tinkering about, or they've got a book and they're jotting the lyrics down, what would be a word of advice or something you would say to them? Maybe if they're nervous about reading it to somebody, or...
well, why not put it out there? A lot of people that I speak to don't write for the reason that to actually broadcast it to an audience, and a lot of them do it just for self-expression. But if you are wanting to put work out there, just do it. And it sounds quite easy for me to say, but I've been in that position, and I'm in many ways a testament that if you just put something out there, that you don't know what doors are going to open from that. Or drop me a line, man. I'll give you a bit of advice.
There you go. You're a long way from Joshua Brooks now, Argh Kid. Thank you so much, man. Just before you go, would you do me a massive favour?
Sure.
Would you just... Any piece from your choosing from your head? I'd love to hear something else.
Okay, cool. I'm going to do This Is England. This is England. This disunited kingdom. Home of the have-nots and home of the have-lots, where you can be born with a head start in life or into a headlock. Where we have the greatest educational institutes on the planet, but far too many of us are going to the school of hard knocks. Where we have no alternative for leadership than to wait on a false labour or be choked to death by the conservatives. And meanwhile, our doctors and nurses that stop us riding in hearses are working more and paid less in this eaten mess of an NHS. And our tricky media do their best to villainise the vulnerable. At what point is someone going to criminalise the culpable? Because there are more than frauds and thieves on Benefit Street, like Miggity Mr. Banker that sits high in a canary tower, whilst under his perch millions search for contracts with 0 hours. And I'm lucky, because I can still get cash from machines, but these days people are going to banks to get potatoes and beans, and it's obscene that this is England, this disunited kingdom. We haven't got a gap in our society. What we've got is a gulf. Streets upon streets upon streets of lost sheep being herded by wolves. Thank you.
That's a perfect way to end it. Dave Scott, thank you so much, man, for being on. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Loved it, man. It's great. Thanks a lot.
Cheers, man.
Cheers.
And that is episode 28 done. A big thank you to Dave for coming on and taking time. I know he's a busy guy. And I love that. I was just in awe of him, and I know Griff was as well. Also, we had a lovely lad helping us out this week. He was helping Griff with all the cables. His name is Max. A big shout out and thanks so much for your help. It's not a regular thing. We don't do a lot of work experience, but Max came with us to Zifferblatt in Edge Street and helped us out. So that is it. Until next week, you know where to find us at 2shotpod on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, 2shotpod@gmail.com if you want to drop us a line. And thank you so much for joining us. I'm going to go and have a gargle with something for my voice so it's better for next week. All right, take care. I've been Craig Parkinson. He has been producer Griff. And this has been the 2 Shot Podcast. Take care. I'll see you soon. The 2 Shot Podcast is presented by me, Craig Parkinson, recorded and produced by Thomas Griffin for Splicing Block. Our brilliant music is courtesy of Then Thickens. Cheers.